Two hunters who helped an American man kill a protected lion in Zimbabwe have appeared in court today charged with poaching. The two men were allegedly paid $50,000, around £32,000, by US dentist Walter Palmer to let him hunt and kill the animal known by locals as Cecil. Mr. Palmer is now facing a major public backlash and has insisted he thought the hunting trip was legal, as Sky's US correspondent Dominic Waghorn reports.
The leafy Minneapolis suburb that lion-killing dentist Walter Palmer calls home. A lot of animal lovers and not much sympathy for the now notorious neighbour.
I think it's somewhat egregious, almost what I would characterize as criminal, that someone would find it enjoyable to shoot such a beautiful creature just so they can say they have a trophy.
Dentistry clearly makes good money in Minnesota. As well as his house, Walter Palmer could afford hunting trips costing tens of thousands of dollars each. But one of them in Zimbabwe has earned the American hunter a firestorm of hate on social media. He and his hunting guides are accused of luring this lion, known as Cecil, out of a national park so he could shoot him with a bow and arrow.
People see me for a variety of reasons.
This is Walter Palmer as a dentist, promoting his services, enhancing the smiles of Minnesotans.
For a number of cosmetic reasons is the way to complete a case.
And these still show him as a hunter, posing with the animals he paid tens of thousands of dollars to kill. In a written statement, he's tried to defend himself. I had no idea that the lion I took was a known local favourite, he says, was collared and part of a study until the end of the hunt. I relied on the expertise of my local professional guides to ensure a legal hunt. That statement was issued with the help of a PR company that Mr. Palmer appears to have hired to help him through this controversy. It's probably also advised him to lay low. He's certainly not been seen here at his home all day. Walter Palmer's alleged accomplices in the killing of Cecil the lion appeared in court in Zimbabwe. A professional hunter and landowner faced poaching charges after the American dentist paid them $50,000. Back in Minnesota, his dental surgery is closed on its doorstep, an unusual shrine to the slaughtered lion. And local residents putting up flyers condemning the dentist, who may have trouble working here ever again.
They're not happy. I don't think he's got practice left here.
You think his business is over, do you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think that's the general consensus.
He's finished.
Yeah. Should be.
In less than a day, Walter Palmer has gone from suburban obscurity to global infamy and could now face professional ruin. Dominic Waghorn, Sky News, Minnesota.
Well, with us to discuss this is Steve McIver from the charity World Animal Protection. He's live in our central London studio. Also joining us via Skype from Windhoek in Namibia is professional hunter and wildlife photographer Jofie Lamprecht. Very good evening to you both. Thanks for joining us on Sky News. Well, firstly to you, Mr. McIver, what effect will the death of an animal such as this have on the local safari industry in that part of southern Africa?
Well, I hope that it has a very serious impact on Africa generally and the way in which it is failing to regulate and protect their precious wild animals, animals such as Cecil. At the end of the day, we talk about Cecil, but a lion is a lion, a tiger is a tiger, an elephant an elephant. These are animals that are being cruelly hunted down, lured out of national parks in this instance, and slaughtered for someone's bizarre idea of a sport. So I hope that as a result of this backlash, this outrage, that animals will no longer be used for this sort of sick entertainment, but actually be given protection, the protection that they deserve.
Mr. Lamprecht, are there any times where hunting can be beneficial to communities? Can it benefit the local environment, for example?
Absolutely. You must not try to understand why we hunt. You need to try to understand the benefit of what we do. Granted, what has apparently happened in Zimbabwe is an illegal hunt of a lion. Hunting and poaching are two completely different things. Permits are issued by countries in Africa, African countries where there's sustainable populations, where we can sustainably take off older animals off of the population that currently exists there without harming the greater population. It was earlier said on Sky that there's been a loss in lion population. due to habitat loss and human conflict. It's not trophy hunting that's driving these numbers down. Those basic facts of habitat loss and human-wildlife conflict are the greatest issues in the decrease in lion populations in Africa.
Okay, so Steve McIver, it's not trophy hunting that is driving the numbers down, so there are times when hunting can be beneficial to communities.
I find it odd that we can talk about trophy hunting not having an impact in terms of driving numbers down. Cecil is not an isolated case. There are many animals, wild animals, tigers, giraffes, lions, that are being hunted and slaughtered in this way. There is no reasonable argument, conservation or otherwise, for putting animals such as these through such suffering. And in fact, in places like South Africa now, they're actually breeding lions in lion farms where the lionesses are so stressed that they're actually eating their own young in some instances because of the cruelty involved. 7,000 lions, according to our investigations, are bred right now for petting, for walking, photography with tourists who haven't realised that these animals are being exploited. So let's get back to being concerned about the welfare of these animals, which is, I think, what is causing the outcry amongst people across the United States and here, which you just saw in your last newsreel.
Okay, and Jofie Lamprecht, I mean, is that your analysis? Do you get a sense that, from your analysis, people are breeding lions for this exact cause to go out and hunt them?
We've got two distinct things we need to discuss here. There's wild lions that live freely in Africa and cohabitate in their ecosystems, and then there are lions which are taken out of the wild and kept in captivity. I'd like to focus on the wild lions out there in Africa. A country specifically like Zimbabwe has benefited dramatically from trophy hunting over the last years. Zimbabwe's economy is completely destroyed by what's going on there, and trophy hunting is one of the few things that still generates foreign revenue, creates employment, it generates protein for local people. If trophy hunting wasn't existing in a lot of places in Zimbabwe right now, the people will be poaching and decimating entire populations of animals, making these wild, free-ranging animals extinct regionally in those areas, and those populations wouldn't exist. Breeding in captivity, I don't want to get involved with that. That is a completely different argument and story. I can only comment on the wilds and the wide open spaces of Africa.
And I guess, Steve McIver, that is the difficulty, isn't it? In many of these countries where the hunting is taking place, they are poor communities, and it does generate revenue, it does generate profit for many of these people who, in many cases, are desperately poor.
Well, I think the reality is that one of the greatest, most precious assets, treasures that countries like Zimbabwe and South Africa, Kenya have are these wild animals living in these national parks. It's driving huge numbers of tourists. In fact, just a few weeks ago, I was actually in Kenya looking into the eyes of a lioness in a national park, and the thought that people are really being duped into thinking these animals are being protected and conserved when in fact they're being lured out of national park areas like this to be hunted and slaughtered, I think will drive a lot of people away from being tourists and bringing vital revenue to countries such as Zimbabwe. Trophy hunting is not the answer. I think most people listening to this program, watching this program, would never consider trophy hunting. They want to take a photograph of these animals, they don't want to take their lives.
And Mr. Lamprecht, what do you think should happen to these two men that received this £32,000? Look,
poaching is poaching, and if they did not have a legal permit to hunt that animal, then the law must be followed, and they must be prosecuted in the right way. I don't think Dr. Palmer is as much at fault as the international media is saying. Yes, he was the hunter, but he paid a professional in order to take him and hunt that animal with him, and the procedures and the laws and the permitting of that country should have been applied. I'd just like to come back to what Mr. Kiefer just said about going to Kenya. In 1976, they closed all hunting in Kenya. Today, Kenya's animal population is down down by 80%. That means that 80% of the animals which once existed there don't exist anymore because there is no trophy hunting. And Mr. Kiefer, hunting is not the only solution. It is one of the key conservation tools which can be applied to save Africa's wildlife.
Okay. Stephen,
well, I was just going to say, I just think the suggestion that trophy hunting is the panacea that will protect Africa's wildlife is a rather ridiculous statement. And the gentleman on this programme is really interested in protecting his business rather than protecting wildlife. I'm interested in protecting wildlife.
Okay, indeed. This is a debate that will inevitably rumble on. Steve McIver and Jofie Lamprecht, many thanks for joining us this evening on Sky News.